All right, Carter's Corner back again. Sorry, I don't know for those watching on the stream. Hopefully it's back up again. It's like I said, with the copyright, the music and all that, Facebook is really, really strange sometimes. So this is very experimental. We're hoping it works. So you have Travis Carter, Carter's Corner, 897. We've got Bass from Health Australia Party. And just literally walked in the last minute. That's why we played an extra set of messages when we weren't supposed to. Sorry. We have... Now, did I say your last name right? Greg Busson?
Very
you can
good.
talk now, Greg.
Thanks, Travis.
Yeah, your mic's live.
Yep.
So Greg is from the CFMEU, and you are the secretary?
Yeah, of the Mining and Energy Division.
Fantastic. Now... the amount of times I've said we've got the CFMEU coming in, people look at me blankly. And so a lot of people don't actually know what CFMEU actually stands for. So
well, it's actually CFMEU now. But it's Construction, Forestry, Maritime, Mining and Energy Union.
Oh, wow. It's a mouthful.
That is now.
Yeah, so I'm shocker with names.
Yeah.
So I just had to go chuck a double M in there.
Yeah, we'd always say the CFMEU, but
just
officially it's double M.
So... to pretty much summarise that, pretty much if you work in some form of construction job, and obviously the other industries as well, you got a problem with your boss, you come hit you guys up, you help us out. Obviously, you got to be members and whatnot and stuff like that. So, on the last week, there was a very, very big announcement from our opposition leader, Zach Kirkup. And...
great name.
it's just perfect because it leaves him over for so many. So the whole theme of this show has been Kirkup stuff-ups. So there's been 3 big ones, and you could argue a 4th coming through literally this week alone. So the first one I want to have a talk to, and that's the whole reason why you guys are here. Kirkup's decided he wants to cancel coal in Collie. How's that for a tongue twister? So, I'm just getting a message from the director. There's might be a problem with the live stream, so just bear with us for a minute. So while we're getting that sorted out, Greg, so how is that going to affect people down in Collie?
Well, it came as a shock on last Wednesday or Thursday whenever I got the news. We've been working with the government on a just transition away from coal-generated base power load for 3 years now. Mm-hmm. It's a gradual phase out, trying to attract more industries to town. That we'll see coal probably play some part in the state's energy requirements for about at least another 20 years, but at a reduced rate as we go along. There's no other jobs in Collie. It's solely reliant on this 1,500 jobs directly related to coal and the power industry in Collie. There is another employer, so Worsley, South 32 it is now, halfway between Collie and Bunbury, but the majority of the people work in the coal mines and then the related service industries around that. So the surprising thing about it was he had this plan of $100 million for retraining people, but what do you retrain them in when there's nothing else to train? Well, all you're going to do is retrain people to leave the town and the community.
Exactly. And a lot of these small mining, the forestry industries, a lot of the small towns, especially the farming ones as well, they're struggling to hold their people because there's no opportunities in the small towns. Most of the kids are leaving. The amount of farms, and I'm talking 4 and 5 generation farms that are getting shut down, or they're just walking off because there's nothing they can do. So I find it really strange that the Liberal government, or Liberal opposition, especially Zach, because by the sounds of it, he's done a total backflip. And so this policy is just so green. Like, I don't know. It's just when I heard the announcement, I was actually in genuine disbelief that a party that was supposed to be standing up, and not, I don't want to say against the Greens, because there's a lot of policies where they do vote together. It just seems since Lisa Harvey stood down and Kirkup took over, they're no longer the Liberal Party. They're no longer the opposition. They seem to be the Greens.
Well,
So,
that was the surprising thing about the announcement. If it had been Labor that made that announcement, the first thing that Kirkup would have been doing, or anyone else in the Liberal Party previously, was standing on the front foot and saying that Labor's being ruled by the Greens.
yeah, exactly. So now we do have Bass here. So he is from the Health Australia Party. Do you have any questions for Greg, like in regards to this?
Oh, Greg, so how many jobs would be affected? Did you say 1,500?
Well, there's 1,500 direct jobs. Well, that's directly, but there's one privately owned power station, which is Blue Waters, which that's probably linked to 300 jobs. But directly, then you've got all the other. Once the coal industry stops, there's places like Worsley, which is South 32, Coburn Cement. A couple of other people use coal. Where do they get their power? Where do they get their energy from after that?
Now, the other thing a lot of people don't understand, and there's a big argument, especially coming from the grain side of things, we need to stop coal. We need to stop coal. We need to go to renewables. We need to go wind, turbines, hydro, solar power, stuff like that. A lot of people don't realise coal is also used in making steel. So even if you totally shut down the coal industry in WA, how are we going to get the required, I think it's called coking coal from memory? How we don't get the coking coal for making steel? Like, we still don't have cars. We still don't have mobile phones. Lithium batteries have a stainless steel coating around the batteries, which is don't store all the, the solar power energy from up north. How we don't make all that stuff if we're not mining coal?
Well, in WA, we've only got thermal coal anyway. All the coking coal was from the east coast, so Queensland, New South Wales.
Yep. So
which is export. That's where all the export dollars are in coal. Last year was between that and iron ore. They were the two biggest export earners for Australia.
Okay, so here's another question for you then. If we've got the thermal coal used for power generation, how much of the Collie supplies the power, like the coal, to generate our power?
Well, Collie supplied the power into the southwest grid.
Yep.
So it's depending on currently it's with the wind that they've currently got and the solar that they've currently got. Collie's still putting between 25 and 30% of the whole southwest grid power.
Wow, and from memory, that includes Perth as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, parts of Perth, yes.
So if they do, I don't know if you're a power expert or anything like that, the people within the CFMEU, hey, have they anticipated, because I remember a couple of years ago before they built the Tesla battery in South Australia, Victoria regularly were getting blackouts. Is that something that we can plan to see coming forward into WA as well?
Well, if you're under this plan, you probably will.
Because I know where I actually live south of the river. I'm in near Kelmscott, and probably every 4 or 5 days our power will drop for like 10 minutes our time.
Well, maybe it's a good exercise that when I go back to Collie tomorrow, we'll just turn the power off for a couple of days, see how you go. No, but
please don't.
Yeah, but that's why we're working with Labor. We're not putting our head in the stand as a part of the community. We understand that the world's completely changing, but we're also keeping our eyes open to new technologies. So there's a thing called HEL. So it's high energy, low emission coal technology.
Yep.
Also looking at the opportunities of maybe extracting hydrogen out of the coal. The Victorian government late last year just announced a $700 million feasibility study and looking at, they've got brown coal over in Victoria, but they're looking at using the coal for a different purpose.
Fantastic.
Wouldn't it make sense that if any governance is going to be introduced, that it does the proactive work first? So let's say clean energy, they roll that out first before they...
Well, it's like the... you get the kids the presents for Christmas with all the batteries, and then you forget the batteries. It's a waste of a present.
Exactly.
So it's having having all your place. Same as gradually shutting down the coal and the power, if that's the way they want to go. It gives you time to attract other industries to diversify the economy, and time to retrain the employees that are currently there. But then it also gives you time that if technology does change and coal's proven that there is another way they can handle it that doesn't put out the emissions that it currently does under the old technology, we've got time to adjust and adapt the current technologies.
Yeah. Now, just makes sense to have that proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. And then it would make really clean sense as you introduce the clean energy, then you can transition and swiftly help people stay in jobs, retrain, rather than kill a town or kill...
It is, and that's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to decimate a community and also parts of the southwest, because 30% of those people that work in the coal mines live in Bunbury or Busselton, those areas.
So one of the things, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, I do have a laptop here, and a lot of the comments that come up on the Facebook page on my own personal systems, and you can send in text message requests for questions. So the line is 0418 897 897. Obviously, we've got the Facebook stream on Carter's Corner. Also, if you want to watch this tomorrow, we will have it on the YouTube channel. So Travis Carter on YouTube, just search me. There's a picture of me and my daughter on there. So it'll all be there. It's my favourite photo. She's just really cute. She's like giving us a kiss. My hat's falling off and it's all good. So one of the questions that were coming up through here is more of a statement than anything else. Liberal government, it killers of jobs. And I used to always be on the fence on this side of things, because I always thought that Labor was more about saving jobs, especially in the construction industry and all that sort of stuff. Liberal was about creating jobs in the white-collar industries, service industry, sort of like, you go down to your local cafe and things like that. So that they were both arguing over creating jobs. And I don't know if you listened to the show before. We do rip into Mark McGowan quite a lot on the show. We rip into pretty much everyone. I don't think there's many people that like me at the moment. Especially Jeff Perry. He really doesn't like me at the moment. So we have ripped into a lot of people, but one thing I have to give Mark McGowan credit for, pre-COVID this is, so ignore everything I'm saying now because of COVID, but he was doing really, really well in creating a lot of jobs for Western Australia. He was doing a really good job in securing the mining industries and all that sort of stuff. So don't get me wrong, I'm not criticising him for this. And now we see this policy coming out from Kirkup. It's just like, you know, to recover from COVID, we should be creating more jobs. And I think he made a claim or something, making 200,000 jobs. And I'm thinking, where... It might have been $200 million or something to do this, but he's done rip off 1,500 jobs down into Collie, the associated jobs with that one, and then everything else that's going on with it. I don't get it. Do you have any idea what he could possibly have thinking, how this could help him win the next election? Or is it just picking figures out of the sky because saying, you know what, no one's going to check it, so we'll just go with it?
I just think myself, reading the polls, most of his seats are either down Busson or Margaret River Way, which is a bit greener, also Claremont, Cottesloe, all that sort of area. If you read the polls, he's been starting to lose ground there. So I think it was just an announcement to try and limit the damage in those seats. That's my personal opinion anyway.
Yeah. So I've got to have some interesting figures here. Some polls were actually released over the last couple of days. His own personal seat, from understanding, is Dawesville, and he's only holding it by 0.7%.
Oh, wow.
So when you think about it, there's only about 25,000 people per electorate. So... 1,000 people, maybe, switch?
Like 500.
500?
I know the candidate that ran against him, that it was a bloke called Adam Woodidge, who's an organiser for the ETU.
Okay.
And I think he only got beaten by 500 votes.
Wow.
So that's another thing where his electorate is. There's a lot of people that are related, that live there, that work at Alcoa, in Pinjarra, Wagerup and places like that.
Yep.
This might do some damage to him in those seats too.
Well,
just in line with Carter's Corner narrative,
Yeah.
so we're saying the Libs are killers of jobs, especially in rural, where we need to maintain jobs, and Labor's potentially killer of small business with lockdowns. Is that right up there with your narrative?
Wow, okay. Talk about picking on people. No, that didn't come from me. That came from Bass. No.
I mean, just to include the small businesses that have been affected by everything that's been happening, I'm guessing they're feeling this pain, and they're probably going, well, where do we fare in this? We don't live in Collie, or potentially there's small businesses in Collie.
The thing that I've also noticed is a lot of people, especially, let's run with the small business just quickly. I'm just keeping an eye on the time because we've got to go do some messages soon. So a lot of small businesses, the biggest way to make sure they stay in business is to reduce as much outgoings as possible. And I know my power bill is monstrous compared to my water bill. And so if you start messing around and experimenting with power, what's that going to do to small businesses in the local region, especially if they start having power out, stuff like that? I know...
Valid point.
When I was a teenager, I used to work in a cafe, and if we had a blackout for more than like 2 or 3 hours, you had to throw all your food away. And you're talking like $5,000-$6,000 worth of food, especially for like a cafe or something along those lines. How is that going to affect a lot of the small businesses?
I think whoever's in powers that are hiding to nothing, because he either A, has the lockdowns, keeps everyone safe.
I love how you do the quotations.
Or B, he just lets it open slather, and then everything shuts down because COVID's rampant. You're on hiding to nothing, really.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, this has been really interesting. So hopefully you'll stick around with us a bit longer because there's more we want to talk about. So I'm going to go to a quick message, and then after that we will have... actually, we don't go to a song because I doubled up on the messages before. So we will go to a song, and we'll be back after this with Carter's Corner. All right, Carter's Corner is back again. I'm just playing with the volumes to make sure that people can hear me. There we go. Now, just for the live Facebook stream, this is Carter's Corner. You've got Travis Carter here. We've got Bass. Just hit my microphone. We've got Bass across the road from us.
And I think we're getting an indication for volume up.
Oh, okay.
From the producer.
I didn't touch anything, but he's saying he's happy now. So
excellent.
Wow, actually, that is very loud. So we've also got Greg from the CFMEU, commonly known as the CFMEU, and just came in. For the people watching on the live stream, we have had Michael Darby come in and join us as well. So for those who don't know who Michael Darby is, he describes himself as a friend to mining. He's an extremely knowledgeable person when it comes to pretty much everything politics. And
Great.
an amazing bush poultry person. Like, my kids were a bit of a ruckus, and Michael just busted out with, I think it was Banjo Patterson from memory. And I've just never seen two kids just stop dead in their tracks and absolutely enthralled, like, they just love it. So if you ever get a chance, listen up, Michael Darby, bush poetry, absolutely phenomenal. So great babysitter for us. So
thanks for that. All poets love commercials. I could hear outside you lads discussing the issue of jobs.
Hang on, Michael.
Let's all understand what a job is. A job is human activity which is paid and which adds value.
Brilliant.
And the best example I know of a person who adds value is a coal miner. Because a coal miner is paid to bring out from underneath the ground something that has no value down there, but when you bring it out, it makes civilization possible.
Exactly.
But we now have a bunch of clowns in government who are saying, we are going to create 200,000 jobs without asking the question, what is a job? So what they are going to do is to create jobs, so in their terms, which subtract value instead of adding it. And then a job is subtracting value if it is receiving a subsidy. And if we are going to carpet Western Australia with windmills and solar panels, every one of them subtracts value.
Yep.
What we need is more industry, more coal mines. We need smelters. We need things that actually add value, and we need, of course, our wonderful primary producers. So we have at least one political party, and probably others, who do not understand that you have to add value all the time so that the poor and the disadvantaged can be cared for, and so that ordinary people can look forward to a prosperous future.
Yep, I can't argue with that one on that
Sage
side
advice.
of things.
Yeah, very sage.
My biggest concern, and like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy having clean environment. I enjoy being able to walk down the park without my shoes on. I hate shoes with passion. For those watching on the live stream, by the way, you'll probably wonder why I've got a dress shirt on and shorts and thongs. We're having a bit of a poking fun out the mainstream media where they're sitting behind the desk with the suits on and all that sort of stuff. And hey, we're on radio. No one can see us until now. So that's the reason behind the bit of a joke. So, but with the coal side of things, how the whole country as a whole was created on it. You go think like the trains, way back in the early days when the farming started really pushing off. How were they getting all the product from the farms to the port to be exported?
And how do they get it from the port to the next port? By
Exactly.
a steamship.
Yep. So way back in those days, so they had to have coals for the steamships, coal for the trains. Back in when they had steam engines, they had to use the coal to create the steel, which had all the train tracks. So this coal has built the country. And Michael is right. We do need to look at manufacturing, production, and things like that. We can't do it, and we can't be so reliant on places, especially like China, who, after what happened because we dared to ask where COVID came from, and then all of a sudden they stopped taking our wine, they stopped taking our, I think it was barley. There's a whole heap of other things that they're holding us effectively for economic ransom because we dared to speak up and have a voice.
And I think that's a disappointing thing on a federal level, is we were shown our weakness, our soft belly, that we rely on other countries for all this stuff. Successive Liberal governments federally have shut down all the manufacturing in this country. Might I say that Labor, when they've had a chance and haven't had a chance to return it, but not once have they mentioned, since we're trying to come out of this recovery, about setting up another manufacturing industry in Australia. We've got that. We've also got the security problem we've got with our fuel supplies.
Yeah. I heard we're down to like 33 or 34 days or something.
I think it's only 10 if you really...
10 down even lower.
For our state.
See,
For our state, yeah.
If you have a look on the federal side of ACT, because I'm pretty sure the fuel reserves is actually a federal policy, it actually says we have to have 90 days in the reserve. So how... And
the MUA have been having this running a campaign on this for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's just landing on deaf ears. Prior to the last federal election, Bill Shorten had a plan about returning to state ships again, an Australian shipping industry that would go around our thing, because I think there's only one ship left in Australia.
So that's
all of them
another industry destroyed.
Yeah, so at least he had a plan to sort of return that. He understood how vulnerable we are, especially if you want to invade Australia, just cut off their fuel supply for 10 days and then come and get us because the army can't fight.
And don't worry about the power stations. We'll take care of it ourselves.
So that's another thing that Michael was a great point. This decision that's come from Mr. Stuff Up, there's another name, but it's later on in the night I can say that one.
We are after
Few
the
more
swearing
beer.
level, but
So the disappointing factor and the surprising factor, he hasn't consulted one person. He didn't consult the representatives of the employees, so the unions. He didn't consult the employees themselves.
Yep.
I've talked to the coal companies. He hasn't talked to them, and he hasn't talked to the power stations.
How do governments or governance get away with doing that, running policies or trying to run a policy without consultation of the people that could be most affected, directly affected?
And I would say also he's chucked his candidate in Collie Preston under the bus, because I bet you he hasn't consulted her either on the thing.
well, I've always had this thought, and I've been a little bit hesitant to voice it, but you know what? I think I'm in a pretty safe space here. I've always wondered, did he actually consult anyone before announcing this? Like, even his own party?
Yes,
So
there was one. He did consult a clown named Dr. Honey. Now, Dr. Honey has no excuse. He's a well-educated man. He has a Bachelor of Science. He's got a PhD in chemistry. He has actually earned his living working for a major company. But the man has no idea at all, and it is he who believes this lunacy about the global warming cult. It is he who believes that carbon dioxide makes the earth hot, and it is he who is deliberately setting out to de-industrialise Western Australia. There is no excuse for him, and I've publicly challenged Dr. Honey already. I'll take him on in a debate. The loser to donate 10% of his net worth to a charity nominated by FM Radio 89.7.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. I wonder if we count as a charity.
You know what I'm wondering about here, Michael, and you raise a really good point. There are people giving advice that are non-elected people, and they're giving advice to officials and to people that make policy and governance that affects everybody. These are non-elected people, like Dr. Honey here that you mentioned.
Well, it's a cult,
Right.
and it's a cult just like the Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. Or the
We'll leave the religion side of things out of it. So.
He's happy to talk politics, but he won't go into religious blasphemy.
No, we get into a little bit of trouble with that one. So we'll leave that one
understand.
alone. Now, we have got a few messages coming through because obviously you can talk to us on the Facebook. You can send text messages in if you've got any questions on 0418 897 897.
Yep.
Also, for the people who've been listening to me a while, we do have an email, info@traviscarter.com.au. Or we've got a new Carter's Corner one, but I can't remember what it is, but I'll get that one out for next week's show. So one of the messages, it's again a bit of a statement. We need to grow manufacturing here, not shut it down.
Totally.
He has failed to consult his voter base. He has turned his back on the conservative vote. It is scientific fact that global temperature rise leads
To carbon increase.
leads carbon increase. Yes, thank you. We're both on the same chat. I really do need to get.
I'm helping you out.
Oh, definitely. This means that carbon increase does not result in global warming. Now, I've always had a thought about this. So we're getting bumper crops from wheats, like pretty much horticulture across the board is growing at an astronomical rate. Is this because like there is more carbon in the air? Like you can't argue that.
I think
but
the
is it more
farmers
carbon.
Well, the farmers blame droughts and less water on the carbon emissions. So this is one of the things that really concerns me. If the farmers are concerned about this and they've seen drier soils, this could affect us from a food supply issue.
I've always had a thought about that
Yeah.
because I saw it on Four Corners. So rather than just building dams to catch the water and not doing anything with it, this guy's going around and slowing the flow of the water instead. So
Brilliant.
what happens is the water is more waterlogged before it rains. So the rain levels isn't actually that much different.
Yep.
But I think what's happening is because you've got all the dams and everything, the water's flowing through the ground faster. So by slowing down the flow of the water actually inside the soil, therefore you can drought-proof the soil.
And probably keep it from evaporation as well. If you're sort of using whether it's trees or soil in itself in a certain way.
Yeah. So that I've always thought about that. I don't know a lot about it. So
There is very innovative farming practices like rejuvenation of the soil and things like this.
It always fascinates me whenever we start talking about global warming and
Yes.
carbon dioxide, stuff like that. People always arc up CO2 is plant food, which effectively it is. So so I am just keeping track of the things, but we do have a guest here. This is Greg from the CFMEU. He is the secretary from the CFMEU.
In the mining and energy sector.
Pretty much everything. So moving forward, because let's say a miracle happens and somehow Liberal does win. What can this...
Not according to the bookies, Travis.
Yeah,
If you had a look at that.
Oh, it's terrible.
But in saying that, the bookies paid out on federal government being changed last election too.
Right, yeah.
Apparently they paid early. Then
Yeah, they paid
Did
early.
they
and
really?
lost a lot.
Yeah.
Ladbroke, Bet365 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
paid out early. Thought Scott was going to win.
I'm not 100% sure if we're allowed to promote
sorry.
gambling. So yeah, but anyway, so let's say something does happen and this plan does go ahead. What can people do to help the CFMEU to help stop this and prevent this?
Well, I think just if it ever, I don't think we should wait for the miracle. Mm-hmm. I think we should be out there contacting their local candidate from the Liberal Party, saying what a stupid idea this is. Mm-hmm. Because as I always say, they always put these amount of jobs they link to renewables. Collie's a community. The community's built on the power and the coal.
Yep.
If you put solar panels and solar farms and wind farms out, the jobs are there when they're constructing it and when they're doing maintenance on them. There's no actual jobs that support a community.
Yep.
We need people now to get on, either put your voice up at the ballot box, or contact the Liberal candidate in your area and just tell them what a stupid idea this is, putting the whole state at risk of blackouts.
Well said, Greg. Well said.
So one of the things is, especially this election has been a bit of a running theme. So let's say to the listeners out there that are on the right side of politics, they do want a Liberal government and that they're really upset about this. So there is a way to send a very loud and clear message, but still to give your required government that you want. So we won't hate them for it. We'll be nice. But what you can do to send a very, very loud, clear message to them, because you've got to remember, for every vote, the first vote that you give out to either the Liberal government, Labor government, or whoever, as long as they get 4%, the government gives them back. I think it's about $2 for the state election.
It's exactly $1.97.
There you go. Thank you,
Travis
Michael.
has made a very important point here.
Yeah.
Because if people vote for the Liberal Party or for the Labor Party or for the Greens, the number one vote gives them $1.97 in the lower house and $1.97 in the upper house.
Yep.
So the answer is vote for a small party first.
Thank you.
Vote for a very tiny party. Vote for Bass. Now, if you happen to choose that you want to vote for an independent, and then or a very small party, if they get less than 4%, the Treasury doesn't even have to make a payout. Which leads me to the point about how desperately unfair it is to pay out only on 4% or better. Why shouldn't some poor blighter who's running as an independent and gets 50 votes? Why not get it? Why doesn't that fella get $100 in hand? Because the small party or the independent loses the $250 deposit anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just another one of those methods to rip off small people for the benefit of the major political party.
And
now,
you make a really good point, because coming from a small party, guys, we have to fund everything ourselves. It's kind of like community radio here.
We live off donations.
You live off donations. You're a volunteer. So basically, if you have a small business like mine, you almost park that aside to try and do what you can for campaigning, for paying for signs, for everything that you do in terms of time, energy, effort to connect with your community, to be in a running chance to be a voice for them in Parliament. So any of those things, of course, would help. Voting for a smaller party also keeps democracy alive.
Yep.
I think I've spoken to a few members of community that said if you vote for one of the big parties and they get enough seats in the upper house and lower house, I think you're getting an indication over there. So basically what happens is, this is how we could lose democracy. If one particular party has the most seats in the upper and the lower house, we don't have a democracy anymore. We have more of a dictatorship.
Well, I think, just on your point there, Baz, I think you just look back to the federal election previously when John Howard won by a majority, and look what the working people have suffered ever since.
Yep.
So, no, one thing we did hear earlier is you were saying that we need to get all the people in society to go out there and start contacting the Liberal government and say, this is a bad idea or this is a good idea. But you need to get your voices heard, because Unfortunately, I don't think the Liberal Party is really listening to the actual core voter base on this one. I don't think they've actually said, hey, is this a good idea? Is it good to kill, hang on, we made a catchphrase to this, cancel coal in Collie. I don't think they have actually thought about what the implication of this. So to try and actually get a response from Kirkup's office, we actually tried to call his office. And
what was the response?
Oh, answering machines.
Okay.
Like, they don't even have people answering their phones. Like I understand you're a Liberal Party, but and you're getting phone calls and all that sort of stuff. But how many staffers do each member of Parliament get to be able to talk to these people? And these days, 9 times out of 10 people either call their local politicians or they send an email to it. And we sent an email, and I'll just see if I can get Dwayne's response on this one. How long did it take Kirkup's office to respond to you? To the request of an interview? He's just sending it through on the messages now. So,
Now, let me just make a point about the timing of this announcement from the Liberal Party. It was just as nominations were about to close. So there was no opportunity for someone living in Collie, perhaps a miner or a lady married to a miner, or someone involved in the industry, to put his or her hand up and run as an independent.
Yep.
There just wasn't time to do that. And I think you'd find that if it had been announced in a decent interval, say a month before nominations closed, that there could have been half a dozen extra people running for Parliament on the theme, protect and preserve and uphold and build on Collie.
So
Makes sense.
we've just had a few messages come from Dwayne about his attempt for a request for an interview from Zach Kirkup. So hopefully he's listening. So I do want you to have a chance to come in, because that's one of the things what I like about Carter's Corner and why I created it this way. We've got, for example, Bass from the Health Australia Party. We've got Charles from the WA Health Party. We've got Tyler Walsh, who's from
Not
One
WA
Nation.
Health Party, the Western Australia Party.
Yeah, the West Australia Party. Thanks for that, Michael.
He might be converting to us later.
We'll see. And now we've got the CFMEU in here as well. We're getting all these different opinions, and I'll be honest, I don't agree with everyone's opinions on this, but that's a great thing. We need to talk about this because there might be something that's really important to me and some other people, and then there's something to other people.
Yes.
And by working together, we get really good policy, strong policy that's fair across the board. And if you, like you said before, if you've got too many people in the upper house, it causes a lot of problems. So,
I think the community benefits from so many varied views.
Correct.
If we could all, hold the respect for each other's point of views and see how can we work together to better serve the community. That's what democracy is built on, right?
yeah. Now, so we did request for Zach Kirkup to come into the show.
Yep.
So pretty much we got through to the admin side of things, and then all the media walls went up. And yes, we'll get back to you. So I highly
No
doubt,
response, basically.
Yeah, I highly doubt we'll get anything from him. So, but I'll keep my fingers crossed because we do want him to have the ability to have his say, try and explain it, and like I said, what's the science behind it? What studies have you done? Have you actually spoken to the community? Do you think this is actually a good thing? Yep. Because personally, I think, like you said, I think he's throwing the Liberal candidate for Collie under the bus.
The thing about it is he's running on this thing about being carbon neutral. But if you read the policy or the two lines in the policy, it's only the government being carbon neutral.
Yeah.
Private business can go and do whatever they want. The gas industry in West Australia is the biggest polluter of emitter of greenhouse gases in Western Australia.
Yep.
There's no mention of them in the thing, and
How
everyone
much money they
everyone that does emit greenhouse gases, if he gets his way and comes here, who's next?
Yeah, exactly. So we are 2 minutes past 7, so we do need to go to a message. So this is awesome. So gentlemen, hopefully you're happy to stick around for one more segment.
Sure.
Fantastic. We've got thumbs up all around. So this is Carter's Corner. We've got Bass from the Health Australia Party. We've got Greg from CFMEU. He's the secretary for, is it
Mining and
nationwide?
Energy.
Mining and Energy, yep. And we've got Michael Darby, who is just an absolute legend. So we'll be right back after these messages. All right. Carter's Corner back again. Yeah, the ads didn't play. That was awesome. I didn't fail again.
I think
So-
we need volume up, though.
Yeah, I think I've unplugged the thing. No. Have we got volume now? Dwayne's dancing the jig.
Yeah. I like that. I
Yeah.
wish we
Yeah,
could
we've
turn the
got-
camera on him.
It's
Yeah,
like a
perfect.
disco.
Yeah.
It's like those guys that bring in the planes at the airplane at the airport.
Oh,
Yeah, this
yes,
way,
yes,
this
yes. Yeah, okay. So, so obviously Carter's Corner. I'm Travis Carter. We've got Bass directly across me on the yellow mic. We've got Greg from, Greg Busson. Busson. Okay, so from CFMEU. And we've had a changing of the guard. We got Charles Smith, the Honourable from the West Australia Party.
Hello, Travis.
How are you?
Good.
Actually, would need to boost you a little bit. How you going?
Hello, Travis.
Ooh, that's a deep and sexy voice there. You sure you're not on one of those 1-300 numbers? Wow.
He's honourable. He's honourable. So
Good
let's keep
good
this
evening,
respectful.
listeners.
So yeah, so are you actually on the, hey Dwayne, can we just make sure Charlie's on the screen as well? Yeah, he is. Awesome. So this is really like it's strange and weird.
It is
and
new
fun.
to you when you have a camera in here and you're just used to radio.
Oh,
But it's
very-
actually, I think it's a good touch. I was planning to come in here and do a whole selfie thing with Facebook Live on my phone, but this just goes one step further.
Does the job for you.
It does it for me, definitely.
Yeah. So what we have got Charlie in here. He is a current sitting member of Parliament. Actually, I'm a little bit quiet now. So Charlie, thoughts on what the Liberals have done? Has Kirkup
What have they done?
Has Kirkup made a career-ending stuff up?
With what in particular?
The
The-
cancelling of
The
coal
Liberals,
in
the
Collie.
Liberals for climate change policy.
Yeah, the blue-green algae party. I mean, the Liberal Party.
Well, I think I was surprised as the next man was, to be honest.
Yeah.
A policy out of left field for a Liberal or Conservative party, that's for sure. And it's the ironic thing is, and the hilarious thing is, if you play that on a national basis, what we have in the state WA Liberal Party is what we have over in the eastern states from the Labor Party and vice versa. And it sounds like when McGowan says you're destroying jobs, etc., and so on and so on, that's what Albanese is saying over there to the Liberal Party when they talk about shutting down stuff.
I must admit, as someone who doesn't follow...
We're seeing like a 180 reverse in politics. It's just a bizarre situation to be in.
Yep, I must admit, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't vote for either of the majors. I haven't for a long time.
Good. Vote for one of the smaller parties.
So it's it seems to me, and this is the reason why I don't vote for the majors. They're just name calling each other.
Right.
There's like two kids in the school playground, like kindergarten kids, punching on with rubber gloves, and it's just frustrating because it seems that they're always trying to. They've got power brokers in the background saying no, you will do this regardless of what the voter core base wants and all this sort of stuff. It seems there's always some sort of policy coming out let's start with Bill Shorten. So he did the removal of 50% of the carbon combustion vehicles by, I think it was 2050. So at least he gave a really long time frame to get it done. I support that, but you know how many Australians have four-wheel drives? They're driving their boats and all that sort of stuff. I don't think that policy was very well thought out. Maybe gradually, not going 50%, because I've got a wife and two kids that live with us, and so we've got two cars. One I barely drive; it's just like a backup car. But electric cars are just way too expensive, and they're not that efficient yet. So I just find it's that the majors continuously don't really talk to the voter base. And there was an interesting post coming out from the boss of Twitter saying that only 20% of the people make 80% of the tweets. So there's a very small minority being very, very vocal, very loud. And I wonder how much of that is the Liberal Party, especially in WA, getting caught up, and they're hearing things in the background from power brokers saying, right, you have to do this, and they're not really talking to
I think it's
people.
very obvious that the Liberal Party have been receiving really, really bad advice from their people for a long time now, going back to Lisa Harvey when she was leader. Just coming out with just absolute rubbish, and it's just continued. They desperately need new people and new ideas and new leadership in that party.
Or do they need to go back to the old hands? Maybe get Mike Nehan back.
I doubt it.
Ooh, I think I might have hit a chord there.
Ned Flanders.
Yeah. No, I like that one. Very, very true. But he's Canadian, So,
Shall we hear a little bit more from
Mr.
what's
Smith?
happening in your world?
In my world.
Yes, the WA party. So what's your thoughts?
Well, as we know, we have a state election looming.
Yes.
And over this last weekend, we've just done all the preference negotiations. They've just come to a conclusion. And just yesterday, we found out what party's doing what in terms of preference deals and so on. So that's what I've been doing the last few months, really, is trying to arrange good preference flow for the West Australia party in this up-and-coming election. And fingers crossed, we will do okay. The big danger for me is Labor having a massive landslide vote, which is just going to knock everybody out the race. That's the danger we face coming from a small party.
Sure. And we'd like to see people that value democracy not do that and perhaps look at other alternative options.
Well, I know that Greg can't support that one because I won't say you're tied to it, but a lot of the Labor policies and a lot of their volunteers. I know when I helped in the federal election, a lot of the volunteers for Labor were actually from members of different unions across all these different industries, because unions have always been for the workers' rights, and Labor has always been.
We are big supporters of the union movement, in particular CFMEU and MUA. I think they are the best unions out there. They are really working hard to promote working class Australians, and in particular, we've seen a bill come through the House around industrial manslaughter, which
Yes,
of
I
course
remember that
we supported and managed to get that across the line. And for that, I think the Liberal Party have stitched me up good and proper in the preference negotiations. So, and the great irony there is, I think that big business, I know some don't like it, but big business are now behind this Labor Party, and they're not too worried about that legislation going through, you know? So I don't know what the Liberals are up to. I really don't know. They're getting bad advice, making all the wrong calls and bad decisions.
What my thought, and I asked this last week, and then we've seen all these new policies. Do you think the Liberals will hold on to enough seats? Because they lost 18 seats at the last state election. It was an absolute bloodbath in that one. And then you can look at Mark McGowan's popularity now. It's gone to new heights.
Well, the polling that's come to my attention is Labor are on a very high primary vote. Yep. And that's going to put the Liberals down to about 8 or 9 members in the lower house. They're just going to get completely smashed.
So at what point does Liberals no longer become a major party? Is it time that they have to turn around and say, right, okay, we need to start forming coalitions with all the minors?
Wow.
Well, what they need is a rebirthing to remember what they supposedly stand for and get back to a somewhat of a conservative party, not another left-leaning socially liberal party, which is what they are now. They need to wake up to that reality and do something about it.
Okay, so we've had a few messages come through. We have, apparently, we've got a listener. I think it's actually the Greek, all the way from Greece. The guy from last week. So he's listening again. So thank you very much.
Stavros.
I actually know his real name, but he's asked to keep it quiet because apparently I don't know if you heard last week's show, but some of the stuff that's happening in Greece is that they've just taken...
Do they have Liberals over in Greek?
No, I think
Greek land.
I think they've got the party from V for Vendetta, and the people are disappearing, and people are going to jail just for stepping out of their front door and things like this, like full on hardcore lockdowns from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. If you want to leave your house, you got to send a text message, "Hey, I'm leaving my house," and from that moment you got 2 hours to get everything done back again, and it's absolutely insane. And so I would not want to be living in Greece at the moment. So
how do they get away with that in Greece? Because the Greeks can really protest.
They like a protest.
The French protest. At some stage, during the GFC, I worked for a global Fortune 500 company. And at some stage, one of the decisions by management was to give everyone a pay cut. And we all in Australia completely agreed, and we all said, yes, we understand, we don't want to lose jobs. Let's agreeably take this pay cut. Then we hear about our friends in France. They closed the factory gates down. They burnt tyres at the front with rubber burning. They held their management hostage in their office. And they said, we're not leaving until you can guarantee us that's not going to happen. Well, I think that's union at a whole different level.
But that's in a country where going on strike and standing up for yourself is not illegal, as it is in Australia currently. Australia's never ever recognised the right to strike for working men and women. So
I've heard that you actually got to take it through. If you want to do a full strike, like tools down, you've got actually got to get permission from the courts to.
Well, currently it's called protected action. So if we're in negotiations for an enterprise agreement, for example, the only time you can take it is once that agreement expires.
I was a part of the roof tilers strikes.
Then also it's for a safety issue. So in previous days, if there was an issue at a mine, the whole mine would shut and you get it fixed pretty quick. But now they've changed the legislation. The legislation's that far watered down now that it's only those people that are actually at that area where the safety breach is.
Right.
So all they do is move them out, don't fix it. They'll wait till the next shift comes on and just move someone else in there. It's just the days of being able to force people to, or encourage people to make change before anyone gets injured. But just on that, thank you very much for voting for that legislation. There's a lot of people in Western Australia that have lost loved ones. I can't believe that in this day and age we're still sending our loved ones to work and some of them are not returning. And some of the shenanigans that went on with the Liberal Party, blocking that legislation, holding it up, standing up and speaking for 11 hours straight and just to follow it up was disgraceful. And I think that shouldn't be forgotten at the ballot box either.
It's worth saying, you won't believe the pressure business put me under as an individual member of Parliament, continuously, 24/7, harassing me to block.
But if you do nothing,
just incredible.
If you do nothing wrong and you're safety orientated, you shouldn't be worried about the bill.
Would this be the professional lobbying? Is that one of the
Business lobby groups? Yeah,
which is absolutely dangerous.
Oh, it's just
To
incredible,
to
non-stop,
society, yeah.
almost harassment of me, saying you must block it, and it was just outrageous, really.
So
I think
this-
that's a perfect example of politicians listening to the will of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People had enough.
Mm.
You know, sending people to work, as I said before, getting
Yeah.
killed and no one coming home.
Yeah.
And they were young people that hadn't even lived their life, the
Yeah.
majority of these people.
So when I was
So I
working
think that's a
rooftime-
classic example where that's politics working perfectly, I think.
Yeah, like when I was working as a roof tiler, there was this one job where they were supposed to put safety mesh underneath it. It was like a 5-story house or something, and he's putting the sheeting in, and he went straight through the mesh because it wasn't installed properly. So things like that is just not acceptable. And I think the kid was like 16 or something. So it's just too young to die. And then we've got the technology and the equipment and stuff like that. It takes 5 minutes to put a safety harness on. So things like that, there's no acceptability for it anymore. It was just pressure to get the job done quick.
Well, what we've seen, I mean, I know you'll agree, is we had this race to the bottom in terms of price and quality in building and construction, right? And that's just a big
You ready to annoy everyone?
problem with...
We're not China.
that's caused all these problems within the building standards
Yeah.
and construction.
Well,
It's just a disaster.
Whether it's construction or whether it's mining, and probably every other business in Australia, as soon as financial constraints or financial pressure come on a company, the first two things they cut,
Safety.
safety and training.
Yep.
And they're the two biggest things that keep people alive. And if the companies realise that, they're the two biggest things that make money for you, because if you get the job on, you'll get it done on time, you'll get people properly trained that can do the job,
Yep.
and it'll be good quality work, and you'll get the work.
Do it properly the first time or don't do it.
Yeah.
So Mum always said, do it properly the first time or
Yep.
don't do it. Now, we are up to time for another message. So, Greg, you've been stellar. A lot of our opinions differ, but that's fine. That's the great thing about this show. You've been a blast. I've actually absolutely loved having you on here. So, any closing statements you want to make before you head off?
I just, if people, we were talking before, just thanks for the opportunity to come on, and hopefully
no
another
problem.
day I can come back.
Hopefully you can use
And
your
he's come a long
influence.
way to be here, actually. He's come all the way
Yeah,
from...
I've come from Collie, so I had a 2.5 hour drive to get here. And it's actually 3.5 hours by the time I come up the bloody freeway.
Oh, this freeway's terrible.
How'd
So-
you go with the congestion?
Oh, jeez, it was fantastic. They fixed the other side of town, like Coburn. That's not too bad now, but this side needs a bit of work. But
Yep.
thanks very much, and I
No,
really
no worries.
enjoyed it. But
And if you can get me a Labor candidate or a Labor politician in here, God, I've been trying for nearly a year to get a Labor politician in here. And
I'll see what I can do with our
yeah.
local member, Mick Murray. He's good for a chat.
Hey, if he wants to come in, we can always call him in. So, Mick,
But
love
our
you.
discussion earlier on about preferences and that,
Hmm.
if you're going to go for one of the Labor, smaller parties, look who the preferences go to, because
Yep.
in the federal election in Collie, the southwest, because of certain policies of the Labor Party at the time, there was a turn against the federal Labor Party.
Yep.
But people went to One Nation,
Yes.
and a vote for One Nation is a vote for Liberal.
And that's how come Colin Ticknell got into
So just-
paid leader.
If people and exercise your right for free speech and vote who you want for, but
Yep.
remember where those preferences go to.
Exactly, and that's why those preferences are so important. And if you don't want your vote to go to the wrong person, always vote below the line. Tell the preferences exactly where you want. So if you do want to send a message and you do want to, in this scenario, so let's say you do want Colin to get your first vote, then give Colin the first vote, and then put your rest into Labor or whatnot like that. So that will, again, send a message. They won't get the money. It'll go to the minor party, or you can put who else? Another of the minor parties. You've got a candidate down that way, haven't you? Southwest.
Yes, we do, in the upper house. And the other thing is, just on that, from an educational point of view, all the preferencing is available from now, actually from yesterday afternoon,
Yep.
on the WAEC website.
Yep. Now, Dwayne, I've got the link on my phone. I'll send it through to you. We'll get it up there tonight on this video over here. So if anyone can't find it, we'll put it up there so they can find it really, really easy. So, and just quickly, the CFMEU website.
Yeah, we've got one. We haven't got a website at the moment. Our national body has. We're in the process of setting ours up, but we've got
Fantastic.
we've got our email address there. So
Yep.
it's
Hang on, I'm just seeing if there's anything. No, I'll get the details up for the federal one. I don't want to give you personal details out on this. You'll get slammed by angry
good enough.
liberals.
just as we said before, if people feel badly enough or strongly enough about what this could do to a community, but also what it could do to their own power supply.
Yep.
I urge you to go out there and start lobbying these Liberal Party politicians out there, and don't forget your National Party people either, because they haven't said a word in this, so they're complicit in my life.
Yep.
Right.
No worries.
Good point.
Fantastic. So we're going to go to a quick message from our sponsors.